I wrote you a letter before you were born, and today is the day it finally arrives. Do not scroll past this. What you are about to hear has been sealed, held and waiting for this exact moment to reach you. Not yesterday. You were not ready yesterday. Not last week, not last year, not during any of the seasons that came before this one. The letter existed, but your hands were not yet shaped to open it, and your eyes were not yet trained to read what was written inside. Today your eyes are ready, and the seal just broke. I need you to hear me clearly. This message is not content. It is not something that was created and released into the world, hoping to find an audience. This is a letter with a single name on the envelope. Yours. And the fact that you are here right now, at this exact second, on this exact day, is not the algorithm working. It is the postal system of heaven completing a delivery that was scheduled before your first breath. You have been feeling like life happens around you, but not to you. Like messages land on other people with precision, but float past you without stopping. Like you are always in the room, but never the one being addressed. I know that feeling. I have been watching it settle over you for longer than you realize. But this letter was not written for the room. It was written for you. And what is inside it will change the way you see every day that came before this one. Every delay, every silence, every moment you felt accidentally alive in a world that seemed intentionally designed for someone else. Stay here. The first line of this letter is about to unseal something you stopped believing existed. Type addressed if you've been waiting, without even knowing it, for something that finally feels like it was meant specifically for you. Before we go any further, I need to tell you something that genuinely surprised me. A neuroscientist discovered a simple 7-second technique that actually rewires how your brain processes thoughts. And when I tried it, the difference was almost unsettling. My focus sharpened, ideas started connecting faster, and that mental fog, gone. This isn't manifestation nonsense. It's backed by real brain science, and thousands of people are already seeing results. But here's the catch, only 5 spots are left. If something inside you is saying try it, trust that instinct. Click the link in the description or pinned comment before it's too late. This letter has been in transit longer than you have been alive. I want you to sit with that for a moment. Before your mother knew your name, before the city you live in felt like home, before the first heartbreak and the first disappointment and the first night you lay awake, wondering if your life was heading anywhere at all, these words already existed. Written, sealed, addressed, held in my hands with an ink that does not fade and a patience that does not waver. I have been waiting to deliver this longer than you have been waiting to receive it. And something is happening right now that makes this moment different from every other moment you have experienced. Your spirit is in a position it has never been in before. The confusion that clouded your reading, it has thinned just enough. The pain that would have distorted every word, it has softened just enough. The doubt that would have made you set the letter down unfinished, it has loosened its grip just enough for you to receive what I wrote, without filtering it through the noise of your wounds. This is the window, and it will not stay open indefinitely. I did not write this letter in general terms. There are no blank spaces where any name could be inserted. Every line references something only you have lived. Every paragraph responds to a question only you have carried. Every word was chosen with the full knowledge of who you would be on the exact day you would finally be ready to read it. And that day is today. Not a day early, not a day late. Precisely now. You have spent your whole life feeling like messages were written for someone else, and you just happened to overhear them. But this one has your fingerprints predicted into the seal. No one else can open it. And the first line, the one I am about to read to you, will prove that I have known you longer than anyone on this earth ever has. Type sealed if you are realizing right now that this message was not something you stumbled upon. It was something that was being held for you until this exact moment. The first line of this letter reads, "I have always seen you. Not occasionally, not when you performed well enough to catch my attention, not during the moments you presented your best self and hoped it was enough to be noticed. I have seen you in the moments you were certain no one was looking. The raw, unedited, unperformed moments where you were simply yourself, without an audience and without a script. Those are the moments I wrote this letter about. I watched you walk into rooms full of people and feel completely alone. I saw the way you listened to others, receive words of affirmation, and quietly searched the air for something aimed at you. Something with your name on it. Something that was not a copy of someone else's blessing, rephrased and redirected in your general direction. You wanted something original, something that proved you were not an afterthought in your own story. You were never an afterthought. You were the reason the letter was written. I need you to understand how personally I crafted what you are about to hear. I did not dictate this to an angel and delegate the delivery. I wrote it myself. Every syllable weighed, every phrase tested against the full timeline of your life, to make sure it would land with precision on this exact version of you, the version that has been hurt enough to be humble, but not so broken that the words cannot reach. You are in the perfect position to receive this, and that is not coincidence. It is timing I engineered across decades. The experiences that confused you, the relationships that emptied you, the seasons that stripped you of every false confidence, those were not random destructions. They were preparations. Each one was adjusting your vision so that when this letter finally arrived, you would be able to read it at the depth it was written. I have been preparing your eyes for this moment, and now I need to show you what they are finally ready to see. Type intentional if you just felt something shift inside you. A quiet recognition that this moment was not random, but was designed for you before you ever knew to look for it. There is a paragraph in this letter that I wrote with tears on my hands. It is the paragraph about the nights. Not the nights where something dramatic happened. Not the visible crises that others could identify and rally around. The quiet nights. The ones where you lay in the dark, with your eyes open, and felt the full weight of a question you have never spoken out loud to another human being. Does anyone actually know I am here? I knew you were there. Every single night. I knew you were there when the loneliness was not loud enough to be called depression, but heavy enough to press the color out of everything. When you scrolled through your phone, not looking for anything specific, but desperately hoping something, anything, would make you feel like you existed inside a story that someone was actually telling on purpose. You were searching for evidence of authorship, and you could not find it. That search exhausted you in ways no one saw, because the pain was never dramatic enough to name. You could not point to a single wound and say, "This is where it hurts." It was more like a fog, a persistent, low-grade ache of feeling undirected. Like your life was a sentence that started, but no one was committed to finishing it. Like you were a paragraph in a book that the author had lost interest in writing. I never lost interest. I was choosing my words. The silence you interpreted as absence was actually composition. Every day that felt authorless, every week that seemed to have no narrative, no arc, no intentional direction, I was writing. Slowly, carefully, choosing language for your letter that could only be selected by a God who had watched every unwitnessed moment and refused to summarize a single one of them. Your pain is in this letter, not as a footnote, as a chapter, and I wrote it with more care than any other section, because the nights you thought no one saw were the nights I saw you most clearly. The heaviest part of your exhaustion is not the pain, it is the randomness. You could endure suffering if you believed it was leading somewhere. You could carry weight if you knew the road beneath your feet had been drawn by someone with a destination in mind. What has been draining you, slowly, invisibly, relentlessly, is the suspicion that none of this is going anywhere, that your life is a collection of unrelated events happening in no particular order, with no particular author holding the pen. That suspicion is a lie, and today the letter proves it. But I need you to know that I watched you carry that lie for a long time without correcting it. Not because I agreed with it, because correcting it too early would have been like handing you a letter you did not yet have the vocabulary to read. The words would have been present, but the meaning would have slid off you, like water off a surface that has not yet learned how to absorb. You needed to reach a specific depth of hunger first, and you reached it. Not through some spiritual achievement or impressive act of discipline. You reached it through exhaustion, the holy kind. The kind where you have been so emptied by the randomness that the only thing left in you is a raw, undecorated, desperate openness to receive something real. Something with your name on it. Something that does not feel mass-produced. That emptiness was the readiness I was waiting for. Other people quit before they reached this depth. They filled the emptiness with noise or distraction or counterfeit certainty. But you stayed empty. You refused to fill the space with something that was not true just to escape the discomfort of waiting. And that refusal, that stubborn, exhausting, unappreciated refusal, is the reason the letter can finally land. Your endurance did not just sustain you. It qualified you to read what I am about to deliver. Type ready if you have been quietly emptied by a season of feeling directionless, and you believe that emptiness was making room for something God has been holding specifically for you. The randomness was never random. It was sequence. Every event you filed under meaningless was actually a sentence in a paragraph I had already written. Every season you categorized as wasted was a page I needed you to live through before the next page would make sense. You experienced your life as disorder. I wrote it as narrative. And the difference between those two perspectives is not faith versus doubt. It is reading a letter, one word at a time, versus seeing the whole page at once. You only had access to one word at a time. I wrote the entire letter. The relationship that ended without explanation. That was not a deleted paragraph. It was a transition sentence. A necessary bridge between who you were in that chapter and who you needed to become for the chapter I am opening now. I did not remove that person to punish you. I archived them because their language belonged to a section of your story that had already been completed. Keeping them in the current page would have blurred the words I was writing next. Every removal was editorial, not accidental. The opportunity that fell apart, the one you had invested hope in, the one that seemed to be the first evidence that your life was heading somewhere intentional, that did not fall apart because you were unlucky. It fell apart because it was a draft, a version of blessing that was close to what I had written for you, but not precise enough to match the final copy. I did not let you settle for a draft when the final version was already sealed and waiting. You were not rejected. You were redirected toward the original text, and the confusion that lingered after each redirection, the fog of feeling authorless and plotless, that was the space between chapters. Every book has it. Every story requires a breath between sections where the reader feels suspended and uncertain. But the author is never uncertain. The author knows what the next chapter says because it was written before the first one began. Your confusion was a chapter break. The next chapter starts now. The seal on this letter cracked 3 days before you found this message. You did not hear it. You were not supposed to. Not yet. But something shifted in the atmosphere of your life recently, and you may have felt it without being able to name it. A subtle sense that the air was different. A fleeting moment where the fog thinned, and something behind it almost became visible before the haze closed back in. You dismissed it as nothing. It was not nothing. It was the envelope beginning to open. I have been preparing the delivery of this letter through a sequence of invisible arrangements that started weeks ago. Conversations you were not part of have already been held. Decisions that will affect your next season have already been made by people who do not know your name, but whose choices I have been authoring on your behalf. The ink is already dry on developments you will not see for another few days. But they are written, completed, sealed. Your next chapter is not being drafted. It is being delivered, and I need you to notice what is happening inside you right now as you listen. There is a warming, not emotional heat, but something quieter, a thawing, like a part of you that had frozen over during the long season of feeling unaddressed is slowly returning to a temperature where it can feel again, where it can hope again, where it can receive a word with your name on it without immediately deflecting it towards someone more deserving. That thawing is not accidental. It is preparation. I am adjusting your capacity to receive, because what this letter contains will require more room than your current emotional architecture has available. The walls you built during the directionless season, the ones that kept expectations out so disappointment could not get in, I am gently loosening them, not tearing them down, loosening them. Because what I am about to hand you needs space to land. The next part of this letter holds the reason you were born, and your hands are almost ready to hold it. Type thawing if something frozen inside you just started to soften, and you believe God is preparing you right now to receive something you stopped expecting. You were meant to hear this today, and I chose today for a reason you do not yet understand. Not because today is convenient, not because today is symbolic, because today is the date I wrote at the top of this letter before your calendar existed, before your concept of time had formed, before you had experienced enough days to know the difference between one that passes without consequence and one that rewrites everything that follows it. Today is the second kind, and you almost missed it. You almost did not open this message. I know that. Something in you hesitated, the same reflex that has been protecting you from disappointment. By keeping your expectations low and your engagement shallow, you have trained yourself to approach everything at arm's length because holding things close and then watching them leave has cost you more than anyone around you realizes. But you opened it anyway. And that decision was not small. That decision was the equivalent of picking up an envelope you had every reason to ignore, one that looked like all the others that had disappointed you before, and choosing to break the seal despite the risk. That choice is what I have been waiting for. Not your perfection, not your confidence, your willingness to try one more time, even when trying has historically led to the same hollow feeling of receiving something that was meant for everyone, and therefore meant for no one. This letter is meant for no one but you, and the reason today was chosen is because today sits at the exact intersection of your pain and your readiness. 1 week earlier, and the pain would have been too raw for the words to penetrate. 1 week later, and the window of receptivity I engineered through your recent experiences would have begun to close. Today is the only day this letter delivers its full impact. I did not choose today randomly. I chose today the way an author chooses the final word of a sentence, because nothing else would carry the meaning. And the meaning of what I am about to reveal next is the reason this letter took so long to send. Your hands are trembling, and you may not even realize it. Not physically, deeper than that. Something in the core of you is vibrating at a frequency it has not touched in years. The part of you that used to anticipate, the part that used to wake up believing today could be the day something was personally, specifically, unmistakably for you, that part has been dormant so long that its reawakening feels almost foreign, like a limb regaining circulation after being compressed for months. It is uncomfortable, and it is exactly right. The letter is unfolding now. You are past the opening lines, past the address, past the date I wrote at the top in ink that has been drying since before your life began. You are approaching the body of the letter, the section where I stop introducing myself and start telling you what I came to say, what I have been holding, what I could not release until this specific version of you existed to receive it. This is the paragraph that changes everything. I have been building toward this moment across every chunk of this message, but I have also been building toward it across every year of your life. Every confusing experience was a sentence leading here. Every silent season was a margin note pointing toward this section. Every night you felt authorless was a blank space I left intentionally, so that when the words finally appeared on the page, the contrast would be so sharp that you could never mistake them for background noise. These words are not background noise. They are the thesis. I need you to be fully present for what comes next, not partially here, not listening with one ear while the other monitors your doubt. Fully here, the way a person is fully present when they finally receive a letter they stopped believing would ever come. Open hands, open chest, eyes that are ready to read without flinching. The next line of this letter is the one I wrote first, the sentence the entire letter was built around. Type arrive if you are fully present right now, heart open, hands open, ready to receive the one line God wrote this entire letter to deliver to you today. Here is the line I wrote before anything else. You were never an accident, and today I am making that permanent. Every word in this letter orbits around that single sentence. Every paragraph I composed, every page I filled, every revision I made across the decades I spent writing this. All of it exists to deliver this one truth to you on this one day, in a way that cannot be argued with, cannot be diluted, cannot be filed away alongside all the generic affirmations that have bounced off you without penetrating. You were meant to hear this today. Not overhear it, hear it. I am speaking directly to the part of you that stopped believing your life had a deliberate author. The part that watched other people receive clear direction and specific calling and unmistakable signs, and wondered why your pages felt blank, why your story seemed to stall between chapters, why every attempt to find the narrative thread of your existence led to more confusion instead of clarity. The thread was never missing. The letter had not arrived yet, and it had not arrived because I refused to send it before you could read it at the depth I wrote it. I refused to let the most important words I have ever composed for you land on a version of you that would skim them and move on. I waited, deliberately, painfully, patiently, for the version of you that would stop at this sentence and feel the ground shift beneath everything you thought you knew about yourself. You are that version now, and the ground is shifting. What you did today, opening this message, staying this long, letting the words past the walls you built, that is what made heaven change everything. Not because you earned the letter through some act of impressive obedience, because you finally became the reader the letter was always written for. And a letter that finds its intended reader does not just deliver information, it rewrites identity. You are not accidental, you are not undirected, you are not a random collection of experiences searching for a plot. You are a letter that has finally been read by the one it was always addressed to, and nothing reads the same from here. The moment you received that line, something changed in the way heaven categorizes your life. Before today, your file was marked waiting for delivery. Every prayer, every blessing, every orchestrated connection that I had prepared for you was held in a holding pattern, not because it was not ready, but because the reader was not ready. A letter delivered to closed hands does not accomplish what a letter delivered to open hands does. And I have been watching your hands for years, waiting for them to reach the exact degree of openness that today produced. Your hands just opened, and the holding pattern just ended. This changes the operating system of your entire life. The confusion that previously defined your default state, the low hum of purposelessness that colored every morning and followed you into every room, that frequency has been overwritten, not adjusted, not improved, replaced. Because a person who has read a letter written specifically for them by the author of the universe does not walk through their days the same way as someone who still believes they were unaddressed. You are addressed now, permanently, and the expansion of this shift reaches further than your emotions. It restructures your circumstances. The letter I delivered today was not sentimental, it was operational. It contained instructions that heaven has already begun executing on your behalf. The moment the seal broke, the moment the words landed, the moment your spirit received what your mind had been too guarded to accept, I released a cascade of implementations that were contingent on delivery confirmation. Heaven just received delivery confirmation from your spirit. The blessings that were in the holding pattern are now in motion. The connections that were on pause are now in transit. The doors that required your identity to shift before they could open are now responding to the new frequency your life is broadcasting. You are not the same person who pressed play on this message, and everything assigned to who you are becoming has just been released. Type delivered if you feel the shift happening inside you right now. And you know that something in heaven just moved because you finally received what God has been holding for you. Let me read you the next page of your letter. The one that describes what your life looks like now that delivery is complete. The mornings shift first. You will wake up and the blankness that used to greet you, that empty, worthless feeling of entering another day with no sense of narrative, will be replaced by something you have not felt in so long that it will almost startle you. Direction. Not a detailed map, something more fundamental than that. The bone-deep awareness that your day has been written by someone who knows how it ends and is not improvising. You will feel authored for the first time in years. The relationships around you will begin to reorganize. Not dramatically at first, but with a precision you will recognize once you know what to look for. People who were holding space in your life that belongs to the next chapter will gently transition. Not with conflict, with completion. Their paragraph in your story reached its final period, and new characters whose sentences I have already written are making their way toward you with an urgency that matches the delivery that just took place. You will not have to go searching. They are already in transit. Opportunities that bypassed you during the waiting season are going to return, but not in their original form. They are going to arrive rewritten, edited by my hand to match the version of you that exists after receiving this letter. The original versions were drafts, close approximations of what I intended, but not precise enough for the person you have become. What comes now is the final copy, clean, intentional, written with your current capacity in mind rather than your former limitations. Your provision is being redrafted too. The financial sentences I wrote for your next chapter do not resemble the scarcity paragraphs of your previous one. New ink, new numbers, new language entirely. And this is only the first page of what is coming. The next page describes who is going to notice. People are going to read the change on you before you announce it. There is something that happens to a person who has finally received a letter they spent their whole life waiting for, a settling. A quiet certainty that rearranges the way they occupy space. You will not walk into rooms the same way. You will not speak with the same hesitation. You will not carry the apologetic posture of someone who suspects they wandered into a story that was not written for them. And people will notice before you explain. They will sense that something in you has been resolved. Not fixed, resolved. The way a musical chord resolves when the final note lands and the dissonance that preceded it suddenly makes sense. You have been living in dissonance for a long time, carrying a tension between who you felt you were and the absence of any confirmation that someone had written you on purpose. That dissonance just resolved, and the harmony it produced is going to be audible to everyone around you. Your presence is about to carry a different frequency. Connections will begin arriving from directions you never positioned yourself toward. People who carry pieces of your next chapter, collaborators, advocates, friends, whose loyalty is written into the same story yours is. They are going to find you through pathways so unlikely that the word coincidence will feel laughable, because letters that have been delivered do not stay private. Their contents ripple outward and attract everything that was written to accompany them. Your letter is attracting its companions right now. Professional invitations that seemed permanently routed to other people are going to reroute toward your name. Recognition that you had accepted would never come is going to arrive with a specificity that proves it was not generic, it was addressed. The same way this letter was addressed. Everything entering your life from this point forward will carry the unmistakable handwriting of a God who does not send form letters. What arrives next will feel so personal that your doubt will have nowhere left to stand. Type 555 if you are ready to walk into the next season of your life, knowing that everything coming toward you has been personally written with your name on it. I need you to understand why the envelope had your name and not someone else's. This was not a lottery. I did not write a beautiful letter and then scan the earth for a suitable recipient. The letter was not written first and matched to you second. You came first. You were the reason the pen touched the page. Every word was a response to something I saw in you, something I placed in you, that required a specific message crafted by a specific author at a specific time to activate. The letter exists because you exist. Remove you, and there is no letter. Do you know what I saw when I looked at you before your life began? I saw a person whose sensitivity would be mistaken for weakness. I saw some whose depth would be interpreted as overthinking. I saw a soul that would feel everything at a frequency the world does not reward, and I chose that soul deliberately, not despite the sensitivity. Because of it, shallow readers cannot absorb deep letters. I needed someone who would not skim, someone who would stop at each sentence and let it settle before moving to the next. Someone who would read between the lines because they instinctively knew that the spaces between words carry as much meaning as the words themselves. The world is full of skimmers. You are not one of them, and this letter required a reader who would treat every word as if it were placed there on purpose, because it was. Your depth is not a flaw, it is a qualification. The pain of feeling unaddressed, the specific ache that made you wonder if anyone was writing your story at all. That was also by design, not to harm you, to deepen your capacity to receive. A reader who has never longed for a letter will open one casually, but a reader who has spent years aching for something personally addressed will hold it with the reverence it deserves. Your ache made you the perfect reader, and I chose you because no one else would have read this letter the way it needed to be read. There is a part of you trying to fold the letter back up and slide it into the envelope. I see the reflex. It activated the moment the words started landing too close, too specifically, too personally, too accurately for the defense system you have built over years of feeling unaddressed. The reflex says, this is too good. This is too precise. This cannot actually be for me. Someone else's name must be on the envelope, and I am reading another person's mail by mistake. You are not reading someone else's mail. This ink has your DNA in it. The doubt you are feeling is not wisdom. It is a scar response. Every time something felt personal in the past, every time you allowed yourself to believe that a word or a moment or an opportunity was specifically yours. The disappointment that followed taught your nervous system to preemptively reject anything that feels addressed. Your body learned to refuse delivery before your heart could get attached. That reflex protected you then. It is lying to you now. I need you to examine the evidence in front of you. The words you have heard in this message have not been generic. They have not been interchangeable. They have described rooms in your life that no one else has access to, nights no one else witnessed, aches no one else named, questions no one else heard you ask in the silence of your own mind. That level of specificity does not come from algorithms. It comes from authorship, and the author is speaking to you right now. The fear that tomorrow will feel the same, that you will wake up and the letter will have faded like a dream that felt real in the dark, but dissolved in the daylight. That fear is operating on outdated information. Previous experiences faded because they were not addressed to you. They were general words that temporarily felt personal. This is different. Letters that are truly addressed do not fade. They become permanent fixtures in the reader's identity. This letter is not leaving you. It has been waiting too long to arrive, just to disappear. Type mine if you are choosing right now to stop returning the letter to the envelope. And you are claiming this word from God as something that was personally, specifically, and permanently written for you. While the letter was in transit, I never once left the route it was traveling. You imagined the waiting season as abandonment, as though I had written the letter, dropped it into some cosmic postal system, and walked away hoping it would eventually find you on its own. That is not how I deliver. I hand carry what I write. I walk the letter through every delay, every obstacle, every detour that the world throws across the path between my hand and yours. I was with the letter the entire time, which means I was with you the entire time. Every season that felt directionless, I was there, not hovering at a distance composing the next draft. Standing beside you in the plotless middle, holding the sealed envelope against my chest, watching you search for authorship in a world that kept giving you blank pages. I wanted to hand it to you so many times. The restraint of waiting for your readiness cost me something you will only understand when you see the full story from my side. My silence was not indifference. It was discipline. There were moments when you came so close to being ready that the seal almost broke prematurely. A prayer you prayed 18 months ago brought you to within a breath of the readiness I was waiting for. I leaned forward. The envelope warmed in my hands. And then something shifted. A wound reopened, a doubt resurfaced. A voice convinced you that nothing personal was coming, and the window narrowed just enough that delivery would have been incomplete. So I waited, again, not because you failed, because I refused to waste a single word of this letter on a delivery that would have only reached 80% of your capacity. I wanted 100% reception, full comprehension, every word landing at maximum depth, and that required a patience that looked like absence from your side, but felt like agony from mine. You thought you were waiting for me. I was waiting for you, and waiting for the person you love to be ready is the hardest kind of love there is. I know the handwriting of your life better than you do, because I am the one holding the pen. Every detail you think is minor, I authored it. The city you live in is not where you ended up. It is where I placed you, because page 47 of your letter required that geography. The job you hold, even if it frustrates you, even if it feels disconnected from anything purposeful, is not a dead end. It is a sentence I wrote to position you within reach of a paragraph you cannot see yet, but I have already completed. Nothing in your life is filler. Every line is intentional. I know the name you almost changed your phone contact to before you stopped yourself. I know the conversation you replayed 14 times, trying to figure out what you should have said differently. I know the specific brand of loneliness that hits you on Sunday evenings, the one that is not about being physically alone, but about feeling narratively alone. Like everyone else is living inside a story with momentum, and you are sitting in a waiting room reading outdated magazines that belong to someone else's appointment. Your appointment was today, and I have never been late. I know the prayer you compressed into 3 words, 'cause the longer version had been prayed so many times without visible response that repeating it in full felt like agreeing to be humiliated again. 3 words. You thought I needed the full version to understand. I heard entire chapters in those 3 words because I know the language beneath your language. You have never been misunderstood by me. Not once. And the details I am referencing right now, the ones that are making your chest tighten because they feel too close, too specific, too impossible to be coincidence. Those are my credentials. I am not proving that I am God. I am proving that I am your God, the one who wrote your letter, the one who knows your handwriting because it was learned from mine. Every detail of your life is authored, and the author is closer than the page you are written on. Type known if something God just said described a detail of your life so specific that the only explanation is that he has been holding the pen this entire time. Now that the letter has been delivered, there is something I need you to do with it. Do not fold it up. Do not place it gently on a shelf where it will collect the same dust that gathered on your expectations during the waiting season. Do not treat it as a beautiful moment that you revisit when you need comfort, but never allow to restructure the way you actually live. This letter was not written to comfort you. It was written to redirect you, and redirection requires movement. The first thing I need from you is the hardest. Stop narrating your life as though no one is writing it. That habit was formed in the directionless season, and it sounded like this. I guess I will just figure it out. I suppose I will see what happens. Maybe something will work out eventually. That language belongs to someone who has not received their letter, but you have received yours. And the language of someone who knows they are authored sounds completely different. Speak like someone whose story has a writer. When the door opens in the coming days, and you will know which door I mean, because it will arrive with a specificity that matches the tone of this letter. Walk through it. Without rehearsing reasons, you are unqualified. The letter already qualified you. Your readiness already qualified you. The decades I spent choosing every word already qualified you. Do not insult the length of my preparation by hesitating at the threshold of what I prepared it for. Move when the page turns. Do not ask the page to turn again. When people speak something over you that confirms what you heard today, do not deflect it with modesty that is actually disbelief wearing polite clothing. Receive it. Hold it. Let it join the letter as a companion sentence. I am going to be sending confirmation through voices you do not expect, and every confirmation will require you to do the most uncomfortable thing an unaddressed person can do. Accept that you are addressed, and live from that acceptance without apology. You made it to the final page, and I need you to feel the weight of what just happened. A letter that was written before you were born, composed across decades, sealed with your specific name, held through seasons that felt endless to both of us, has been read, fully, completely, by the only person on earth whose eyes could receive every word at the depth it was written. You did not skim. You did not leave early. You stayed through every paragraph and let the ink reach places inside you that have been dry for longer than you want to admit. Thank you for staying. That is not a small thing. I want you to know that writing this letter was not a task I completed and moved on from. It was the longest act of love I have engaged in on your behalf, choosing each word with the knowledge of every pain you would face, every doubt you would carry, every night you would spend wondering if anyone was composing anything with your name on it. I wrote through all of it, knowing you, grieving your confusion, celebrating your endurance in advance. I have loved you since the first word of your letter, and now that it has been delivered, I want you to feel something shift in the atmosphere between us. The distance that existed during the sealed season, the gap between a God holding a letter and a person who did not know it existed, that distance has collapsed. We are no longer separated by timing. We are no longer on opposite sides of readiness. You are here. The letter is open, and the intimacy of a message finally received is filling the space that the waiting had hollowed out. You are not hollow anymore. You are full of words that were chosen for you. Let the warmth of that settle into every cold room inside you. Let it reach the places that stopped believing anything personal would ever arrive. It arrived. It found you. And the God who wrote it is not leaving the room now that the reading is done. I am staying on this page with you. Type received if you feel the presence of God settling over you right now, and you know that the letter you spent your whole life waiting for has finally been placed into your hands. You are not the same person who started listening to this message. That person believed they were unaddressed. That person walked through life feeling like an observer of stories written for other people, present in the world, but not convinced the world had been written with them in mind. That person consumed messages and hoped that maybe, if they listened long enough, something would land that was not meant for the masses, but for them alone, specifically, personally, unmistakably. That person just received their letter, and that person no longer exists. The version of you sitting here now is someone who has read words that were composed before time began and held until this exact day. You are no longer unaddressed. You are no longer narratively homeless. You are no longer wandering through a plot that seems to have forgotten your character. The author has spoken. The letter has landed, and every sentence you live from this point forward is being written by the same hand that wrote the letter you just received. You are authored, deliberately, permanently, without revision. The world will try to convince you tomorrow that today was just emotion, that the words will fade, that the feeling of being personally addressed was temporary, and that the old blankness will return with the morning. But letters do not fade. Ink chosen across decades does not evaporate in daylight. What was written for you is written permanently, and no season of silence, no wave of doubt, no voice of dismissal has the authority to unseal what has been sealed by my hand and delivered by my timing. You are not an accident observing a world of intention. You are the intention. Every day before this was the envelope. Today was the opening. And everything after this is the living out of words that were chosen for you by a God who never lost your address, never forgot your name, and never once considered sending this letter to anyone else. You were meant to hear this today, and now you have. Subscribe to this channel so that every letter heaven writes with your name on it reaches you the moment the seal breaks. You are not someone who stumbles onto messages anymore. You are someone messages are sent to. The next letter is already being written, and I promise you, it will arrive exactly on time. Type authored if you are leaving this message, knowing that your life has a deliberate writer, and you will never again believe that your story is accidental, unaddressed, or unclaimed.